We are now.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're going to start again. Okay. So anyway, here we are the day before Election Day. And what we were saying a little bit, planetary forces, according to my astrologist. Mercury retrograding. Mercury is about travel, but also communication. So of course, right now, we had a huge glitch in our Zoom class. Okay, so confusion, wires crossed, transportation. Mercury is about communication and connection. So, missing this, missing that. Okay, so we're right in the middle of two retrograde patterns. And there's some doubt as to whether or not we'll know for a period of time who wins the election tomorrow. And I guess what I picked out a section. It's very important that we win the election. Okay, no matter what happens tomorrow, we probably have our hopes on this or that. We win. We claim ourselves as ourselves. Okay? And sometimes, world events or national events, but this is a world event because America is a world power, United States, that, there's a great amount of importance. Okay? But I thought what I'd do is go through a little bit of Osensei's words on World War II. That was obviously, there's an election. It seems a little bit like it's a world war because there's just so much division in this country right now. But he was in an actual war, okay? And a lot of his development came during that war. So I thought what I'd do is just read a couple of words from him, and then we'll go into the other room, and we will. So, okay. Now I had everything. Oh yeah, here it is. Heretofore, warriors were taught that the only way to protect a country, and this is again, protect our freedoms, protect democracy, things like that apply here, was to learn how to cut down an enemy and how to attack anyone who posed a threat. Now, these days, we would kind of say that is a form of what we call toxic masculinity, masculine energy taken to a very extreme. But, that was part of the traditional nature of Japanese martial arts. After World War II, however, there was a movement to establish world peace and use nuclear power not for destruction, but for peaceful purposes. Aikido, too, came into being in order to foster and promote peaceful coexistence. From now on, I believe we should use the principle of love to wage our battles. So he's talking about a progression that instead of looking at things as in like we must win, that we win our battles through love. Okay, and this theme is kind of expounded upon as we go forward. During the war, the fighting became more and more fierce, and I saw that defeat was inevitable. The gods, and he refers here to Kami, told me the world is in terrible trouble. One after the other, young men are being sent to be slaughtered. This dreadful state of affairs has come about because of the inability of nations to rid themselves of hate and contention. And we're talking about today and the elections tomorrow. The war, this country is so divided because of hate and contention. And so it's very similar to his situation during World War II. Okay? It is up to you to give your all in order to stop this war. This was the inspiration I had, and I hoped that I would be able to accomplish such a great task. I had the intuition that Hiroshima would soon be destroyed and the war would end. But given the circumstances, I had to keep my mission hidden. So he sort of knew about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay. What I could do was establish a Takemusu Aiki dojo dedicated to peace and acting as a beacon to the world. I kept my thoughts to myself, devoting myself to building the dojo, trusting that such an act would help bring an end to the war. And sure enough, the war did end. So within that situation, he found a type of personal mission, which was to build the Takemusu dojo, okay? Now, a lot of people kind of talk about his time in Iwama and that Iwama was a special place. Well, yeah, you could argue that. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not, but it was special because that was where he was. And he underwent a type of development during the war. And if he'd done that in another location, that would be special. And all places are special, okay? So, I mean, in the history, Iwama is, obviously is a major Aikido center, but it's a center because of him and the development he underwent during the war there. Not long after, I had another mystical experience. I was standing in my garden at 2 a.m. A phantom image of myself appeared and engaged me in swordplay. At first, I could not counter the phantom's moves, but then I began to anticipate his cuts and thrusts and control him. What happened? The image disappeared in a flash. This went on for 3 days. Then suddenly, there were no longer images, just beams and clouds of light. I did not feel like I was holding a wooden sword any longer. It seemed as if I was breathing in the entire universe. This experience lasted 2 weeks. I then felt completely renewed and had the experience of sensing the entire universe within my body. I realized that enlightenment attained through religious practices and enlightenment gained through Budo or martial arts training were the same. I shed tears for the blessing I had received. I saw all of creation, humans, plants, animals, fish, insects, as being interrelated and emanating from one source. I was full of gratitude and respect for the divine. That was when I stopped focusing on the physical techniques of Aiki. The only thing remaining was sho, chiku, bai, which is pine, bamboo, plum, swordplay. The single most important technique was misogi practice. I saw clearly that all of the people of the world were members of one family. As the Emperor Meiji wrote, all people of the 4 seas are brothers. Let us all join hands and work together. Now, what we would add these days, see, the Japanese sometimes is the gender stuff is jin, can be both masculine and feminine. So this is that all people of the four C's are brothers and sisters. Okay? So with that in mind, I just thought what we do is go and just do some movement. But we're faced with a variety of things. A lot of tension, a lot of fear in my system about what's happening tomorrow. But for me, the actual practice, the misogi per se, is to try to stay grounded in what he calls love, no matter who wins. And I do have my preference, it's very strong, that we don't want to give in to hate and contention. That creates separation. And again, a story I had one time when I was in the courtyard where the cars were parked, for people that rent in the dojo space on Martha Street. There were a couple of musicians, and we were talking in that courtyard area, and they were African American, and we were talking about America. And my statement was something like, I don't know that I believe in America, but I believe in Captain America, the spirit of America. And so no matter what happens tomorrow, whether we feel in our hearts that love wins or hate wins, we don't want to give in to hate. And we actually measure ourselves by the acts that we extend forward through love. And there is a certain belief or faith in my system that love cuts through hate. That is, in essence, there's personal misogi. And one of the things I thought was interesting was that a phantom of himself appeared. And initially, he couldn't do anything. But then he started to adapt. And at some point, the image disappeared. So, he was somebody who really trained to perfect himself as a warrior. And so it's possible he was facing a psychic, interior image of himself. And that finally, he won over that. And what happened for him, he felt the whole universe as a unity inside himself. And so we've continued to train, to perfect our craft, our art. But ultimately, what he did is win over himself. And part of him was still wanting to be very, very strong and to win. But you're facing yourself there. And so, yes, there was a kind of a battle within himself. And what happened when he did win? He won over himself. And then there was that sense, the whole universe, the way he put it, was inside his body. Not just the concept of it, but experientially. He talks a lot about body and spirit. Now there's mind, okay? Mind, body. But my sense a little bit, when the mind and the body go into some sort of balance, then we get the spirit. And so sensing the fullness of creation of the universe inside his body meant it wasn't just something that he was thinking about up here and trying to look for out there. It was something that was actualized deeply inside him. So tomorrow, I've sort of discussed what we're going to do. We're going to follow the election, but we're going to see if we can get all the loose ends here environmentally and also other things in order. So win or lose tomorrow, will have used and devoted tomorrow as a type of misogi cleansing. And so that part of it is very important. We all have reasons to hate what's going on right now. But love, the ability to extend that. That doesn't mean that the things we could hate aren't going on, but it's our response to them. And then what happens here, ideally, is that we face ourselves. Osensei faced himself in the form of that phantom swordsman. So let's go into the other